Plot: Do You Dream in Color? 2015. Written by Anonymous. Do You Dream in Color is the coming-of-age story of four courageous blind high school students as they strive to prove that their disability will not hold them back from achieving their dreams. Voiceover off.
When you're blind and watching movies, what will you find? A blind superhero whose superpowers are acting like he's not blind. A sighted actor over dramatically touching people's faces. And maybe the whole joke is that they're bumping into different places. A spectacular, macular generation. Tunnel vision to your television. And do they off this movie with audio descriptions? They're movie buffs who know their stuff. You'll be thoroughly entertained. Join Sky and Melissa throughout film history and Citizen White Cane.
Hello.
Hi.
And welcome to Citizen White Cane, the podcast that creates an IEP for Hollywood to graduate with decent blind representation. My name is Sky McLeod.
I'm Melissa Bukta.
And we are talking about the movie Do You Dream in Color? ?
Yes.
Also question mark to why is it called that? I don't know.
I mean, well, it's about dreams. It's about dreams and aspirations.
Yes.
And
not like literal dreams, but
No, but-
yeah.
Yeah,
Figurative
aspirations.
dreams.
Figurative.
Yeah. That's true. It's not really about color at all.
no.
I was expecting it to be like a line someone says in
Right.
the movie or something.
Yeah, or something that was actually talked about, and it just
Nope.
never is.
Nope, not at all. They don't talk about dreams. They don't talk about colors.
I think it might be a title to bring the sighted people in.
Maybe. Yeah.
Oh,
I've
asked that to a blind person.
yeah, exactly. I know, but I was like, off the bat, I was like, well, this is going to be dumb because, like, no one wants, blind people are so tired of any questions relating to dreams.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to expect going in, but I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
I think I know I like this better than Eyes of Me, actually. And
I do. Yeah, me
I'm
too.
Definitely not saying that the stories in Eyes of Me should be discounted or just you should never watch it. You absolutely should watch it. But I think as far as a film and the way this was put together and presented, it's just better.
Definitely. I agree. I was thinking that the entire time. I agree 100%. Yeah, because it's now been a while since we did Eyes of Me. It was very early on in this podcast's history. But that movie was really about a blind, high school where where the kids we were following were getting services that they needed for the most part, and we're dealing with like somewhat oppression from the rest of the world and economic insecurity, but it was all a little muddled.
That is a very interesting contrast to pit these two movies against each other. Is Eyes of Me deals with exactly like you said, income inequality is the biggest thing I think in that sticks out to me from that film, whereas these kids they are very much secure. They're not rich by any means, but they're very much secure in their home life and their family life.
Yeah, and there's like a little bit of variation between the different families.
Right.
Yeah. But they were more like, it was seeing kind of, in some ways you saw how even privilege was just not helpful.
No, exactly.
or you saw how it was helpful and how unfair that was. And you even have one of the moms being like, not everyone has the resources our family has to get these accommodations. And it should never cost money for someone in a public school to get accommodations.
But I mean, I felt like she was more saying that to be like, we were lucky enough that we could make this work, but still making it work was so hard, and it's getting harder to make ends meet.
Right, exactly. It was a strain on the family, but also we were the lucky ones to even be able to do this at all, which you kind of see that. I think the movie did really great job at we're following these four kids who are all in high schools that are not blind-centered high schools. They're all
Right,
just kind of
public
like
school.
their friends are pretty much all sighted people. They were seem to be in pretty sighted worlds.
Yeah.
Which maybe for me, I know I made it so that I kind of sadly related way more to these kids than I did
definitely.
in Eyes of Me, because I just was like, wow, I can't even imagine what that would have been like to like be
Yeah.
around a bunch of blind students all the time.
I didn't have a blind friend group until high school.
Yeah, and I did, and it was because I actively sought out the 4 blind other people in my school, and it was like, you're going to be my friend.
Yes, and that's kind of how mine was too. Our mobility teacher, who was teaching all of us at the same time, because the BI or VI department is not big.
Yeah.
And there's one VI department for the entire Anchorage school district, basically. And so we were all at the same school, and so our VI teacher was just like, cool, boop, and popped us all together, and for the most part, we got along. So,
Which is good.
yeah. It was nice to have that camaraderie in high school and to have someone you could actually talk to and vent about just stuff, whether it be visual stuff or high school stuff.
Yeah. I think that is really important to have. I wish, like the few friends that I had, it was just like our school. I don't know if anyone was getting good accommodations, but didn't feel that much like it. But I would just kind of randomly figure out which kids were blind and then try to befriend them. But it's also just like you kind of, it always felt very secretive. Like there was only one student who was a freshman when I was like a senior who used a cane, and so all the other blind people that I made friends with, none of them used canes, because like Southern California is extremely ableist, especially against blind people, and so there's like a lot of discrimination, and it's very, very hard to be a blind person. Like you just encounter some pretty direct hate, and so like I think there was always like there was to some extent people were hiding too, so I like didn't have the opportunity to meet them through like any sort of accommodations we were all getting, like because we just weren't really getting them, so I kind of just had to like seek them out, and it was a smaller high school. It was like an arts school, so I mean, I don't know, like I think hopefully we all made it up here to the Pacific Northwest in the end, but yeah, but I definitely did relate to these students who like, we don't really hear if any of the only person who makes a comment on how many blind people are in her school is one of the teens we're following, whose name is Sarah, and she says that she is the only blind person at her school.
Yeah.
So that's the only indication we get of like how often it is. But it seems like no one really has any blind friends because they don't know each other either. It's just following 4 kids who I assume are all at different schools or different areas. It's never made super clear.
No, it's funny. It isn't made super clear. I think we know at the end of the movie when the updates happen, it does say a little bit about where they came from and where they're going. So we have, I believe Nick is in Colorado. We know Connor is in Burbank in California. Sarah, I'm not sure, and Karina.
Sarah's also in California.
Is in California, okay. And Karina, sorry. I always want to say Karina, which is darling in Spanish, because her mother is Spanish, but Karina. Actually, I think Karina's in California, too.
No, okay.
maybe?
It says something
know.
about her going to community college in Colorado or something,
you're right.
or like for the blind. So it made it sound like the school. There was something about Colorado. I
Yep.
don't actually remember, but it made it sound like she was in Colorado.
I could be totally mixed up and goofed, but yeah. So I think we're watching folks in California and Colorado.
Right, but they might be in different school districts.
Right.
It's never, but they definitely don't really interact with each other in any way. Like we have no idea if they've ever, like, so I got this sense they probably are in different schools and, maybe different school districts as well.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I went through emotions while I was watching this, most definitely.
Yeah.
Because there were little bits of everybody's story that I definitely resonated with.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
could totally relate to. And it felt, I was so angry because this is 2015 and these kids are still going through these problems. But yeah. I was also really happy to know that I'm definitely not the only person in the world that
who's gone through
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was so amazed. I was like, wow, I like literally could be any of these kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just like, it wasn't just that like one of them seemed more like my experience. I was like, oh yeah, no, I've like emotionally experienced all of these. Like every single person's struggle was like very,
Right,
very,
right.
very relatable.
Let's go through the kids.
Yes, let's do that.
So we have Connor. We meet him first.
Yes.
And he's this super cool dude. He loves skateboarding. That's his heart. That's his passion. That's what he wants to do. And he's we find out at the end that he's going to community college for drama, and I'm like, yes, this
You
kid
could
is
see that, yeah.
drama with a capital D. I mean, just
I love him so
he's so
much.
great. The way he speaks, the way he carries himself. This dude is a theater person. But
And
he's
he's
also
like talking about how he's like he's gonna be dating all these people
Yes.
because he's blind. It's just very
because he has
endearing.
sexy eyes. Yeah,
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
it. I love it. And he's also a really dope skateboarder.
Yeah.
I'm so just I'm impressed. I'm not trying to make this sound like inspirational porn, so I'm like, what should I say?
But I liked how the movie was definitely not, in the end you kind of have people who are doing the kind of like slightly inspirational porn,
Sure.
but then like I think maybe a little bit more self-aware about it to some extent with him, because he like gets to join this team. But like I liked how they show so much of him like being like, this is work, I have to work so
being
much
himself.
harder.
Yes.
Like, and
Yes.
like all the ways that he has to make mistakes, and he's like explaining it's a lot harder for me because I can't just look at a trick. And like right now learning to do something physical, like as a blind person, I'm reminded it's like, oh my gosh, sighted people just have this unfair advantage of just like, you can look at someone do something and you just get so much more information from that than we do, and we just get very good at things, but
Right.
it takes so much longer.
Right, and he's all, he's relying on sound and relying on his friend who is sighted to physically position his feet or to tell him
Right, to
exactly where his weight needs to be placed. But I also think that's where he kind of has the advantage. Yes, tricks are hard. No matter
Yeah.
what, you're blind or sighted, tricks are hard. Like I'm not going to be doing kick flips down the street anytime soon.
Yeah.
But he does I love how he explains how all the advantages that he has. He can feel the weight of the board and the weight of his body. He can hear the environment around him because of how the sound of the wheels bounce off of
Right.
where he is.
Right, and then he kind of like brings an entire different like skill set to it, and,
Right.
and like how he
And-
seems like an asset because of that, because he's like bringing all
and
these.
his tricks, you notice a lot of his tricks are he is getting kicking and hopping on the board, but he's also getting down and touching the ground a
Yeah.
lot. And it looks cool and that's a cool trick, but it's also orientating.
Right.
I'm literally finding the ramp
Yeah,
with my hands,
and like it's kind of like an art form. Like I love when you see like disabled people that the way that they do their art makes it like, it's almost like a signature of disability, but it's still like it's very sweet. I love that. I love when
Yes.
it's like you can actually tell us apart because we've added extra cool flourishes
things
to help us.
we make it our own.
Yeah, exactly.
And the cool thing about it is no two blind people or disabled people or no two blind skateboarders are going to do it exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also cool because it's like one of those things you don't necessarily like. I think really blind people could just truly do anything if we just have we care enough about it to just go through all of the like not knowing how to do it and messing up in certain ways. Like it just takes so much more of an investment at the beginning. So I think that it's really like, as blind people, we can just do anything that we're just really passionate about. And this movie, I feel like, especially showcases that. Like, all of the
100%.
characters are so, all of the subjects are just completely, like, so, like, passionate about the things that they're doing. And we see how that passion translates into skill. But then we also see how many obstacles are put in their way and how they have to like prove themselves constantly, and that they know this, and that like like with Connor, like he said something about how like I'm just like, you can tell he just loves skateboarding, but also that he feels like he has to prove that a blind person can do this, and that there's always that like weight of it as well. And
it's when you're I mean, and absolutely resonated with that, and I'm sure you did too, because
Yeah.
it's anything that we've ever wanted to do in our lives. We have to prove that we can do it. We can't just show up
Right,
and
exactly.
just get handed a role.
Yeah,
You
yeah. We
have
can't
to-
be like, I want to try that, and then be like, oh, I like this, or I don't
Right,
like this. It's like, no,
exactly.
you have to prove yourself to even get in the door.
Right. We have to hop that hurdle of proving ourselves, and then we have to deal with all of the people who are just like, well, I just don't know how to handle a person like this, so
Yeah.
I'm just not even going to try.
Right. Well, it's like
It's so easier to just not try.
right. And like how people don't know what the right thing to say is, so they just kind of shut down,
Right,
Or like,
exactly.
or say something that's hurtful. But
Yeah.
yeah. So
Hopping over the next teenager we meet is Sarah,
yes,
who is a model student, is amazing, is book smart, just sharp as a whip. I mean, whip smart, sharp as a tack, amazing.
very high emotional intelligence.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, she's awesome. She's incredible. And her goal, her dream, is we learned that she lost her mother at 5 years old at a very young age, and her mother was Portuguese, and so she wants to go through her high school and study abroad, and her goal is she wants to go to Portugal.
Right.
But her challenge, and she's in AP Spanish, like she's speaking, even though I'm just like, Portuguese? but
it's probably because her school doesn't have Portuguese.
probably
would be
not.
my guess.
Yeah,
yeah.
but Portuguese is not really, it was never an option
Like
when I was in
I
school.
went to Southern California public schools. We didn't
Right.
have that as an
Even
option.
though, again, I've never been to Portugal, but it's hooked on to Spain, so I'm assuming there is some like overlap of Spanish and Portuguese as a language sounds fairly similar.
Right,
to
and she says that in the
Spanish.
movie. She's just
Yeah.
like, they're not like, I have learned Spanish. I could learn Portuguese.
Right, she
like, I
could
just-
get
yeah.
around. Yeah, linguistically, that's not the problem. But of course, these three idiots on the school board who have to decide
So terrible.
this in the IEP meeting. Let me tell you,
The adults in this movie
The adults
that are
in this
like
movie.
making decisions for these students, you just want to like truly want to punch them in the face. Be like,
They're-
you should have never gotten this
yeah,
job.
they're awful people.
You should be as unemployed as blind people are because you actually deserve it.
Yes, yes. So these three assholes who are deciding her fate are basically like, well, Spain will take her because they have a blind program already set up
Right.
over there in Spain. So, and she knows Spanish. So we're just going to send her to Spain.
And they don't, and she does not, she puts in an application and they don't send it.
They don't even submit it.
So the Portugal program could be like could be like
It could have been an
welcoming
option.
to
Yeah.
her, but they don't
Yeah.
even try. And she says at the end of the movie when she finds this out, she's like, "What? But like they didn't even send it. Like if they had sent it and said no, she was like, I feel better
Right.
about it. But like
Right.
they didn't even send it.
The whole conversation she has with her father. Yeah. And
Yeah.
she's just,
I love her dad.
her
so
dad
much.
is so amazing, and she's just absolutely devastated, and he's upset, but she is the one who's going to go over and like comfort him and be like, it's okay, it's fine, you know, I'm going to
Their
Spain.
relationship was so great because he was like, "You're gonna call me every day,"
And
she's
she's like,
maybe
"No,
like once a
not."
month. It just reminded me so much of me at that age,
Yes.
like just being like,
like,
I don't
"Dad,
know if they want me to call."
I'm busy. She didn't say it, but you could just tell. She's like, I'm gonna be so busy, Dad.
It was
Come
so
on.
funny.
Well, and then here's the kicker. We find out at the end of the movie that she visits Portugal twice
Well, yeah,
in her
'cause she's
9
in
months
Spain.
in Spain.
Which that's not that much.
No, it's
right?
not. It's not that hard to do.
Yeah,
but
they are next. They do.
they're
border
right,
each other. Yeah.
literally right next to each other. But still, she goes there twice, and she did it by herself, and she didn't need the idiot fucking school district to be like, no.
Yeah, she just had to work because she has her AP Spanish teacher. We see her talking to the Spanish teacher,
Yeah.
and the teacher is like, "You are the best student. You know, you're like the top of the class. Like you are so capable. I know you would do really well if you were in like Portugal. This is, you know, something I really." And she's like, "Yeah, it's just about like convincing like the
Right.
board at that." And it's
Right.
just the whole thing. She like visits a volunteer for the program to be like, hey, like I'm interested in this, and just the amount of extra work
Of
when you're like a
legwork.
sighted student would just have to send in their application and it wouldn't get fucking intercepted. Like it
Right,
would go to
right.
the Portuguese program.
So I really resonated with Sarah's story in particular because I kind of went through this
I
when
thought
I
of you, yeah, 'cause you talked about this on the podcast.
Yeah, when I went to Costa Rica, and luckily, for me, I had, two amazing Spanish teachers that backed me up, and I didn't have to jump through as many hurdles, but I got lucky. There was a family there in Costa Rica that was willing to take in a blind student. There could have not been.
Right.
Everyone could have said no. And then where would I have been?
Right. It's just such because they talk about this in The Way He Looks as a part of that movie also.
Right.
But it is, because it's something that I always was like, pie in the sky, oh, that would be fun to do, but it's not practical. So it would have been something I definitely, if I felt like there was an opportunity to do it. I didn't really excel in any like language classes. I feel like that probably was a barrier, because where would I go?
I mean, I wasn't
to go to New Zealand, maybe.
Sure.
I
mean, I never made it to AP Spanish, but out of all, like, I did have, like, exactly like Sarah, I did have that going for me. Like, I was a really good student. I was one of the best students. I was there to learn. I could speak the language.
Right.
So.
But it's just like it's so ridiculous that they have to do all this legwork for like having a blind student. I feel like it's just so unfair. And the amount of the adults that were just like, yeah, well, it's the system. Like, it felt so, like, it's like, really, you're not gonna like look at this and see how unfair that is? Like, they were just like, well,
right, and
when makes sense, they can't have a blind student. Like, no, it doesn't.
Sure. And like, when one of the adults that should, one of the only adults that should matter in this conversation, her father, is just like, have fun in Spain, sweetie. He's
great.
He is totally for it.
And the teacher too. I mean, like,
the
people,
teachers. Yeah,
well, that was the thing that I thought about too. Is it's like, this is the classic thing: is the people who actually interact with you and know who you are, know just how capable you are. But it's all these fucking people making who are actually able to make decisions that are underestimating you, because they don't know how skillful you are.
Right, and we don't necessarily see this. Maybe it was caught on film and just wasn't added in the documentary or whatever. But they, except for the phone call to tell her that she got Spain, but we didn't submit the other application, they never talk to Sarah. Right. And I'm just like, talk to her. Go sit in a room with her for like 15 minutes and you'll know she's absolutely 100% capable.
But like, do you even think that would have convinced them too? Like, just like 15 minutes? I feel like it's just the people who, it's just people who make decisions like that, I think, are also the ones who, I bet they probably don't want to know blind students too well, because then they'll feel bad that they're not sending very capable students like application to countries that they want to go to.
These programs just are not set up for disabled students. If you are disabled, this is just something that you can't do. Right.
It's just like an unfair barrier. And this movie was just all about all the unfair barriers. And that's, I think, what really made it work so well, is that you just saw how fucking capable these students were. And it wasn't like a fictional movie, like going to the mat, where you're like, okay, like, fuck this dumb shit.
Come on.
But it is like something where you're like, yeah, that was the kind of capable I was when I was a student.
Right.
And like, you just see how every one of them is just dealing with completely being underestimated and coming up against all these barriers, like, that are just not because of their skill level, but also you see like the emotional toll that takes on all of them, like, to be underestimated, and the emotional toll it takes on their families. I guess we can go on to our next.
Nick. Nick is so. Nick's story, I think out of all of these stories, Nick's story and Karina's story broke my heart the most. Definitely. And made me shed tears, and because I was just so mad. I'm just so mad, and I'm just like, I wish I could have helped. But so Nick's story is Nick is this super super awesome kid, musician, totally into music. That is just his gift. That's his passion.
It's like a drummer and a singer and writes lyrics and
guitar
stuff.
player, piano, loves writing lyrics. Wants to be in a metal band, wants to make a metal band. That's like his favorite genre.
Of the Going to the Mat, whatever his name was.
A little bit.
But he just was like an actual person.
But he's a genuine person. And he's just, wants to be a great student. Wants to have that opportunity. And he is behind in his schoolwork because and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 6 months almost, he just didn't go to high school.
Or I think it was middle school.
Or middle school, sorry. Middle school.
I think he might have gotten behind on Yeah, I don't remember exactly. It might like 6 months or a year. Because I think he has a twin because they were born.
Yes.
They're both born 3 months premature.
Right. And his twin goes to school, no problem. Like,
Because
just keeps going to school.
Because it's middle school, and the mom talks about how when they were going to before they started middle school, right before they started this like classes, she went with them and was like, okay, so you know that one of my sons is like blind, and they were like, no, we don't have any plan for this, you can't go to school here. And she like wound up like they had just, even though she had told like people in power like a while ago that he was going to be coming to school and what he was going to need, like no one like got the message.
No.
And so she had to like how much money, and this is
thousands of dollars she had to spend. She took 2 months off for stress related reasons, from her job. Yeah,
she was just like a full-time job that she was paying to do so that a child could get a public education,
right, so that she could hire an advocate, so that she could find and hire a legal advocate to make it so that her child could get the free public education that is allotted to him in this stupid fucking country.
Right, which is just like, we have a lot of problems with our education system, and to have to spend all of that time and money just to get the problematic education system. Right. Like, it's so baffling.
I must say, there are parts of my educational career that were great, that were, I dare I say, outstanding. And there are a lot of parts where I was let down, that were really shitty. But at least I was never, my mom didn't have to take off 2 months from work to try and find a school that would accept me.
Right. And to like just advocate literally to get school.
To deny a child in this country a free public education because they are disabled is apocryphal. It is, I can't even,
it's terrible.
Words. I can't even come up with a word.
I think it happens to like way too often. I think about how like much I put up with and how much stuff that because we can also talk about Karina's story as well, because her story, I think in a lot of ways I relate to a lot. They're they're almost foils for each other. They have a lot that are similar about their stories, but they're like a slightly different narrative, both of which and I feel like I felt a little bit more like I related to Karina, especially in college. Mm-hmm. Though I think like what happened with me in high school was just like I didn't get the accommodations I needed, and so I just like squinted through textbooks and like just basically just stopped like learning things for a while, and like figured out like never slept, figured out ways to like get okay grades by not doing the work, but like finding shortcut. Like, but it's just like part of me is just like, if I had cared less about just trying to graduate, or like, because I think I was trying to graduate, not trying to like do schoolwork at a certain point. And so I would just take any shortcut that I could figure out by like creative problem solving. But I really wish I'd learned, like there were so many classes I was in that I was like, it'd be cool to learn about this stuff in high school and college. But I feel like a lot of it was just like, I knew I wasn't going to get accommodations. So I was just like, okay, well, how am I going to put all the work I could be in learning to just trying to like get a passing grade by like not being able to read textbooks. So I would just like squint and get really bad headaches, and I just never really occurred to me just how much of it was just like, this is unfair. No other student, like there would be times I'd be like, no other student is having to do this, and like you feel the weight of unfairness of that, and then you would just stop going to school, which is what Karina did. I would just be like, I'm not going to go to class. This is fucking bullshit.
No one is helping me. Her mom can't really help because her mom is sighted and just doesn't. She loves her daughter, of course, but she doesn't live in that world.
Yeah, it's interesting because so we have Karina is her mom never graduated from elementary school, or like stopped in elementary school, I think was what she says, and so she really associates like getting a diploma with like making it in the country, basically.
You can't get a job without a high school diploma,
right? Which it was so sad when Karina was just like, blind people just don't get a job, like we can't get jobs, and you were just like, oh God, that's so true. It's so upsetting.
Statistically, there were stats given at the end of the movie. 70% of
which is better than I've heard in the past, which is 80%. But
okay,
are unemployed.
According to the stats in this film, 70% of blind people are unemployed. And I think it's 1 in 3
of adults also.
Of adults,
Blind adults,
of adults. And then I think it's 1 in 3 blind adults have received their high school diploma.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
And I mean, I had to fight to get mine.
Yeah, me too.
It was ridiculously hard.
Yeah, it was so hard in a way that just other students don't have to deal with that stuff. And we see how Karina just doesn't get her textbooks at all, like through the quarter, and no one talks to her. And so she starts like ditching school, which I was like extremely relatable. Of course, that's what she's doing. And then we have this whole scene where she's trying to graduate on time and has to like there's like a lawyer who's trying to do pro bono.
Yeah, they manage to find a legal advocate who goes to the IEP meeting and is basically shot down by these fucking asshole teachers.
Just the most infuriating thing you could. It was so upsetting.
And because all they can focus on, the teachers, well, she hasn't been here. She's and this the poor legal aid is trying to be like, but we're not talking about why she
you're
hasn't
supposed
been
to
here.
be providing an education and you have failed. And so anyone in that position would stop showing up to school because what investment do they have in this to sit around not getting educated?
Exactly.
Like, it is so fucking your fault.
And then when all this shit is said and done, and because you see Karina in her bedroom with just stacks and stacks and stacks of all these textbooks that she finally got.
Relatable in the most horrifying way.
Yes, but she's just like, I'm here now. It's just me and my binders.
Yeah.
And I can't do it.
Well, and she was like, I have 3 weeks basically to do a year's worth of schoolwork. And it was just like, I just remembered every single quarter of college. And it was just, I'm going back to college. And part of me was like, do I need to go back to college? It's like one of the worst feelings that I've ever experienced of just being like, this is so unfair. And now I am going to feel stupid because I'm not going to reach my goal. And everyone's going to act like I had the same opportunity when I have had 3 weeks to do something that a bunch of abled students have had 10 weeks to do, you know, and for her like a year to do. It's just unbelievably unfair.
I was just like, where's the VI teacher? Nobody sticks around to help her.
No. Yeah, and her IEP says that she needs to get B pluses or better, and literally says nothing about accommodations. It's just like literally what she has to do, but nothing of what the teachers have to do. Which is like, you're providing an education, so like fuck you.
Yeah, I mean, I only went to one actual IEP meeting in my entire school career.
Weirdly enough, I did go to those. I went to, I think, my sophomore year, I went to one and they were like, we can't help you because you don't have a diagnosis, which is why I finally, after a decade, got a diagnosis, because they wouldn't give us an IEP meeting until I could say why I couldn't see, which, you know, whatever. It should have been 10 years ago. But
I don't remember much from the only IEP meeting I ever went to.
Did you have ones that you weren't at?
Yeah, tons. Oh, all the time. Yeah.
What?
I just don't ever remember going to or being at them.
Do you think that's because you forgot, or you actually just weren't invited to them?
No, it's just something I just didn't do. I heard
to do them.
I mean, I heard the words IEP thrown around, but no one ever really told me what it meant or whatever. I just knew that they were talking about me in school. Like, that's basically it.
I mean, for the podcast, it's called Individualized Education Plan.
Yes. Sorry.
No, you're all good.
Yeah. Individualized Education Plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is, like, when I had to do it, it was one of the few actual things I remember about being a blind student, at least in high school, which was, like, at the beginning of the year, every single one of your teachers would sit in a room. And I think I would have my mom there and, like, maybe a vice principal or someone, like there's a specific word I can't remember, but like someone with power in the school that wasn't a teacher, and then me, and we would all sit around in a circle and be like, what is expected during this year, and then how can we do accommodations so that you can like get this stuff that you're expected to do done. And like I remember being like not realizing I found out later that a blind friend who was in the same grade as me had asked to not have to like, you have to do like 200 points of these tests where you read a book and then you have to show that you understood what you read.
Yeah.
And that you actually read it. And I was like, well, I can't read books, so this is like a ridiculous thing to expect me to do. And no one ever brought up in my IEP meetings that I could say like, that's not a fair, because I always was like, this isn't fair, but I didn't realize I could say that, or I don't know if I could, but I always had to do those accommodations. I almost didn't graduate because of that, because I literally can't read. Like, there's no benefit of this to me. And it was just like, it's also why I hate reading to this day.
I think that's why I didn't go to most of mine, is just because I was like, no one wants to hear from me. They're all talking about me, but no one actually wants to hear from me. And the one of them that I did go to, it was nice to see that my vision teacher, because I had in my high school, I had the best vision teacher I've ever had. And she was there, and she was like going to bat for me.
Yeah.
You know, you couldn't shut her up. She was going to be heard whether the other teachers liked it or not.
Right.
And that's amazing.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, I think you see even with the lawyer, like this is a legal advocate who is being shot down for saying just completely sensible stuff. And like, because they're like, well, it looks bad on the school that we like did a horrible thing and like totally fucked up a student's whole life.
You do. I mean, the IDEA Act, the act that is supposed to make it so that disabled kids get the education that they deserve and that they need in schools, in public schools, is not being met.
No, it's not.
It has failed.
Never.
Over and over and over again.
Yeah. It's really, I mean, this was one of the movies where I was like, this is one of the top movies that I would be like, okay, from doing this podcast, I'm a sighted person. I want to better understand the blind experience. I would say probably at this point, this would be the thing I would say to watch first.
Yeah, please go watch this movie.
Like, especially if you don't have, like, an entirely understanding of all the, like, bullshit obstacles. Because this movie, like, you know, there's a couple lines of, like, people who are saying silly, like, kind of, you know, everyday ableism stuff with a bit, like, with Nick's bandmate who is just like, I'm so sad that he's blind, and then but I loved his other bandmate who's like, I think it's sick or something.
Yeah.
I was like, yes.
It's like, oh my god, so what? He's blind. He can do all of the same things that you guys can do in the band, and I mean, and it's so cool. Like his band gets to go out and perform at Hot Topic. I didn't know they did that. That's really cool.
I've been at a Hot Topic where they were doing. It could have actually been. They were all in California, so who knows? Could have been the Hot Topic. I've seen a band play it. Maybe I was at that concert. Didn't even know. But yeah, it was very. It was funny.
The lyrics that he's writing about, you know, he's writing about his experience as a blind person, as a disabled person, and just feeling like he is tossed and thrown away, and underestimated. Exactly, underestimated, and no one wants to accommodate because no one cares.
Yeah, it's really like just all of these kids are just so fucking bright, and also just like they had a lot of like. Just like social, like they all were kind of social and emotionally intelligent as well. Like they just had, they were like the definition of a bright young kid. Exactly. But like, and all of them just were up against these ridiculous things that like were so not their fault and were literally just like, just holding students back, like holding perfectly like bright students back.
Yeah, and I was so devastated, especially at the end of Karina's story, because she doesn't make it. She doesn't graduate. Yeah. There's just no way.
How could she possibly do it? They gave her an impossible task.
They have set her up for failure.
I just felt so bad for her to have to deal with those teachers for any more time. Right. They seem like complete, like, assholes.
Exactly. You do find out, though, that from the update, at the end of her story, that she went and took a life skills program at the blind school in Colorado, and she's teaching classes there, and which is amazing, and now she's going back to get her high school diploma.
Yeah, which is really sweet.
It's great. I mean, it's fucked up, but it's great.
Yeah, I like how I feel like all of them were just kind of like, they had like the kind of happy endings of like a blind person. All
of them went to college, be it community college or university. All of these kids ended up there,
which is like considering just what bullshit they had to deal with is
exactly.
though I do feel a little bad for them because I'm sure they've just had to continue to deal with bullshit. Like, but you know, it's not like we don't really get a point where we have reached past the, you know, point of having to deal with bullshit. But yeah, I think this movie, even though it is so specific to like high school, basic, like they are all high school students, so you're not seeing exactly them, you know, you're not seeing them deal with job discrimination or even like dealing with college, like problems that you encounter in college. So it's still like early on in their journeys. But I also liked how self-aware they all were of like, you also see how much they're already aware of the bullshit they have to deal with. And even with like Karina saying the thing about like, what jobs am I going to be able to get? Like they all also have a sense of what's to come too.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that, yeah.
Scary and depressing.
It is. Some of it was like, it's interesting. This movie like definitely had a lot of moments where it was just sort of triggering of like, oh my god, like
oh yeah,
especially Karina stuff was just made me so
that,
furious.
Oh, that was hard. That was really hard to watch because I can't say I almost didn't graduate because there wasn't really a fear that I was not going to graduate. But in my senior year, I was finally told that I couldn't sub out my orientation mobility credits for gym anymore. And apparently, to this day, I have no idea how this happened. Apparently, I didn't have enough fucking science credits. And I'm just like, I've taken every single science class that you've thrown at me. I don't understand whatever. That one was an easy fix. Go in a room, do this bullshit computer program, and prove that you know how to answer multiple choice questions about science. It's bullshit.
That's bullshit, yeah.
It is bullshit. But the other one was either take a semester of gym of PE or don't graduate, I guess.
Oh, God.
And then my senior year is also when I was finally diagnosed with a learning disability for math.
Oh, wow. I wish I'd gotten that because I can't, because I'm dyslexic and I can't read physically. Like, so I can't read for multiple reasons. No one ever helped me with either of those ever. So I just was like, oh, it's really hard to do school and you can't read.
Yeah.
I can't do history. I can't do English and I can't do science because those are all involve a lot of reading, which is why I got A+ in math, but that was it. And then I can't do math. Like, once I got to college, I couldn't do math because, like, I could get some accommodations for reading by the time I was in college. Some, not very good ones. But when it came to math, I was just like, I couldn't actually get, because what I needed was just, I needed to be very close to the teacher and I needed them to tell me, like actually give me everything they're writing on the board so I could look at it really close to my face. And that was how I passed all my math classes and did well in math. But so it was kind of funny. It almost switched, except for in college, I just couldn't really I was just bad at everything because I didn't have access to, I really didn't have access to reading. But yeah, I mean, it's just, it is almost like you feel like you're just being set up to fail so much, and then there's all these requirements that are for sighted students and there's no leeway, and so you're just it's like you're not learning, you're just fighting to basically be, because you're blind, like,
and you're either held back because you just can't get it, or accommodations aren't made for you and you just can't move forward like Nick, or you are just passed over and passed over and passed over, and then it's too late,
and you're getting blamed for the bullshit of the school.
Yeah, like Karina, or your teachers are telling your mother that don't worry, she's gonna get it, the light bulb will go on sooner or later, we'll just pass you along till the next grade. Right. Basically.
It's like you're underestimated and also expected to do what a sighted student can without any access to the same material.
You're expected to do it the best. A disabled person cannot, in the educational system, a disabled person cannot just be average.
Right. You have to be the best, or you do not graduate.
Right, exactly. So I am proud to say I am an average college student. I graduated with an average grade point average, and unfortunately that it barred me to any entrance into any graduate program.
Well, because you're
ever.
actually also the top of your class if you were given the same accommodations. I mean, like, an average student who's blind is the valedictorian. It just never could be, because, like, the idea of being an average student as a blind person,
I mean,
in a lot of the schools we have is unthinkable.
Yeah. If it weren't for that fucking gym class in high school, I would have graduated summa cum laude.
Oh my gosh.
Honest to God, I would have. But because I got a C in gym class and I had to fight to get that, I didn't graduate summa cum laude, and I am 33 years old and I still think about that. It doesn't go away.
Oh, God. It's so, I mean, it's just, all of it is so upsetting. And, like, I think the nice thing about watching this movie is I was like, oh, this is, like, such a good shorthand to tell people about. Like, it
absolutely.
felt, I was like, this is I just really want people to watch this movie. Like, I think this did such a great job of showing the cascading effects, and it also, like, and you just like the kids, and even you like their family, like, too, which was kind of nice to see, like, families that were, you know, occasionally would have, like, sort of not be fully on board, or not even fully on board, but they wouldn't fully get, like, how blindness is, or, like, be, you know, sometimes a little bit apocalyptic about it, but, like, you know, but just tiny little bits. Like, a lot of the parents were very supportive and were advocates for their kids in different ways, and you kind of just, you saw that, like, you had just, like, students who could have, if they were sighted, would just have so many more opportunities, and like how much they were just held back because of their blindness. And I loved, the movie really felt like it was saying, these are systemic oppression.
Yes.
This is systemic oppression. These, don't feel bad for these students, like, in that they're blind. Like, feel bad that they're in a systemically oppressive
that is just
world.
set up for them to fail.
Right.
There's no out.
No matter how, like, cool and smart and fun and funny these children are, it does not matter at all. Like, I think that did a great job of showing it, because I like how this movie just only did a little bit of, like, this is what the kids see, but it's like, they don't dwell on it. Like, there was another comparison I had with Eyes of V, where they, like, did a lot more of, like, this is what my vision is like, but they only really talk about it when it's really matters for gives context to what someone's saying, like when Connor says that he does skateboarding at night, mostly because it's easier to see.
Yeah, it's because his vision is like seeing through a straw.
Right. Which is like, which I was like, oh, that's like my vision. Yeah,
that's really cool.
But it was like, it felt very specific to kind of explaining what his daily life is like, as opposed to being like, what would it be like to be these students? But more just like, it's just a part of who they are, so it matters in, you know, the way they live their lives. But like, I liked how it didn't feel very kind of like gawking at them in any way. Yeah. It felt really much like they were trying to write their own narratives, very much so, and the movie was giving them every opportunity to do that, and you were just seeing, like, how they were, as a protagonist, constantly coming up against the bullshit. Mm-hmm. But I like that. I mean, like, it's funny in the IMDb thing that we play, because the voiceover at the beginning is from IMDb, but it's like they overcome their disability. So when I read that before we watched the movie, I was I don't know, this is gonna be problematic because of that. But that is such a, like, abled person trying to write about this.
It's not, overcome is not the right word. This is not about 4 kids who wish they weren't blind, and who are doing these things because they're trying to prove they're sighted.
Right.
This is about,
or even, like, being sad about being blind either. They just are like, I want to be able to do the stuff my classmates are doing, and I am no different from them in any substantial way.
I deserve it.
Yeah, exactly.
I deserve a chance. I deserve an equal chance with everybody else.
Right. And I really, it's a short movie.
Yeah, it's an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Goes by like that.
And if even though you're listening to our podcast, you're getting to know a lot about stuff that we face. If you want some more information, it's also wasn't that long ago, so this is, you can't chalk this up to, like, I think Land of Silence and Darkness, I was like, oh, that was also a good documentary watch, but it's in another country in a long time ago. Whereas I
Right.
feel like this is like, we're in the US, so it's biased, but like, it's in the US.
2015.
It's recently.
It's-
yeah.
6 years ago. It's truly not that long ago. And the fact that we are still putting blind, disabled kids through this
Yeah.
is outrageous.
Yeah. But if you want to better understand just what that looks like in general, I think this is a great movie. And just, I don't know, I think it definitely creates the kind of empathy I want. Like a lot of movies we
Yeah.
watch, it's like, what lessons do we learn from this? And this is a good one. This is like the lessons I want you to learn. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else we should talk about before we get to our cutie?
Watch this movie and then, watch Eyes of Me if you want another perspective.
Yeah.
It's not a bad movie. Like what Eyes of Me presents is not bad. I just think this one as a film, as a documentary, is packaged better.
Yeah.
But I think Eyes of Me also tells 4 important stories about 4 different kids.
Yeah, it is a good, like, kind of compare and contrast. And also, I mean, you could also say, like, it shows how the difference between going to a blind-only school. It's kind of, they are also
Yeah.
interesting as a comparative case study. But I think maybe, from us, we both had experience far closer to these kids in this,
Right,
so that's
'cause-
also part of it.
Yeah, because you and I didn't go to go
Right.
to a special school. We've been put through the public education system.
Right. So maybe, I mean, I think you're right that watching both of them can help, but if you only have time for one, definitely watch this one.
Watch this one. Mhm.
Yeah. And the production value, even though actually this one was just a student film to graduate.
Really?
Yeah. They're very good. The two
It's really good.
women who made this movie.
But it's just very there's no bells and whistles because there doesn't need to be. It's just very frank and just it is what a good documentary should do.
Yeah.
It puts you as a fly on the wall in the lives of these kids and their families.
Yeah, and it tells like some pretty good concise stories that like all have like a good moral and make you like really think about it. Like, it's really economic and well packed in like I feel like they really they've like distilled each person's struggle as one thing, and like I think that in a way also helped it, because even though obviously there's a lot of stuff going on with these kids, I really liked how they focused on one struggle, because then in the end it didn't feel as muddled, because you weren't like,
Right,
this person had
exactly.
these like 3 things. I mean, first of all, it's easier to talk about on the podcast, but like but I do think as a documentary you just walk away with a lot more because of that, because you're like, I remember these 4 struggles, and then you can kind of like for like a tree off of that remember other things that happen with each one, but it's like they're more distilled into one kind of coherent narrative.
Right, and it could feel like information overload, or like along the way someone's storyline is just going to get dropped because whatever. But it's not the case.
Yeah, it's really, which I was also like, it's probably not easy to do, since it is just observational, to find such great stories that are
because
so...
there's no narrator. This isn't like a PBS documentary or Frontline. There's no narrator. There are talking heads, yes, but there's no one to try and hold your hand and walk you through the story. She lets the two directors, they let the kids do it themselves.
Yeah, and which is really, and hearing like their parents tell. But they also just, some of the stuff with them, it just feels so much like kids, just like Connor's friends with their skateboarding.
Yes.
It's just like, these are just like, you felt like you were just another kid
They're
who
just
was a
doing it.
skateboarder kid
Yeah.
just hanging out with them.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, these kids just forgot there was a documentary
I know,
in there.
right?
It's like really great.
Kind of want to get on a skateboard and try it myself, and then I'm like, and then I realized you're 33 and have crooked feet. It's not gonna happen for you.
Yeah, but I mean, blind people can do it apparently.
Sure.
So you never know.
Well, I think that's the most important takeaway for a blind person watching this documentary, and or for a sighted person, is we can do whatever it is we set our hearts to and our minds to, and if we're passionate about it and if we want it, we will make it happen.
Yeah.
We will accomplish our goals. It might take us longer. We might have to go about it 3 different ways.
Right.
I'm in the middle of that myself.
Yeah,
But you know
me
what?
too.
Yeah, but you know what? We're gonna come out in the end. We're gonna come out on top. We can do it.
Right. I think that's true. It does give you that, and it also is another aspect of it is like you're not alone. Like these struggles that you faced are like were not your fault. Like, and if you blamed yourself for some of the struggles you faced when you were a kid, like, you know, it's a good way to kind of revisit that and be like, seems like they were, you know, set up to fail, and like maybe I was also set up to fail. Yeah. So I think this is, and you know, if you have a lot of money to give to like good organizations or like start things like that, this is the best movie to watch because there's a lot of stuff we could be doing to make these issues better that we're just not doing, that don't have like the public will or funding or whatever.
Well, I kind of this might pair nicely with the documentary Waiting for Superman, which is about the failures and flaws that are inherent in our public education system. I want to go back and rewatch it now because I can't remember if disability is touched on in that documentary.
I haven't seen it, so, but yeah, that has a similar, I know that the subject matter is kind of like more other sides of the problematic nature of our school system and our public school system. Yeah, definitely. Oh gosh, do you want to do hard cutie?
Yeah, definitely. Whatever the highest thing on our chart is what I give this. 20 infinity. I don't know. Just honestly, if we are so lucky to do another White Cane Awards next year, honestly, this is in my contender for Best Picture. This is one of the best things we watched all year. Yeah. So far. It's great. We've said so much amazing, we've said all that needs to be said about it. Honestly, it's free. It is free on Canopy. Yeah. All you need is a library card.
Yes, and also sadly a library card in the right counties because my mom can't get onto Canopy with her library card for some reason, which makes me mad. But whatever.
Okay,
well, but it's out there. If it's on Canopy, it's probably other places that are somewhat accessible. Hopefully,
go watch this movie. Watch it with your friends. Show your parents, please. This is awesome. I wish that there was kind of like the 7-Up series. I wish that there was a sequel because I desperately want to know where these kids are today. Yeah, teenagers, I should say, young people. I really would like to know what they're up to.
Yeah. Though, would they have such great, concise stories now, or would their lives be more complicated? It's really it's just for a filmmaking.
Because like they all had to go through the pandemic too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it's 7-Up, I mean, it's 2015, so we still got another year until we have to revisit it. So maybe we should.
I want to know.
I know. Yeah, me too. Yeah. I mean, I agree with all that. I think we'll just put it part of the 10% that just has no vision.
Yes. This movie is blind as blind could be.
Yes. I definitely just watch it. I think probably the best documentary. It's definitely the documentary that I think is the most relevant,
uplifting,
and and it's like it's uplifting in some ways, and also just like so realistic too. That but in a way that if it just it did kind of make it feel like somewhat manageable. Like it was more like I was like, oh, these are like in my head, like, oh, we could solve these problems, like here are what some of the problems are, but like there are ways to solve these problems, and like thinking about that. So it's not like one of those where it's just like deep in despair of like everything is wrong and there's no way out of it. Like I think the movie did a good job of balancing that, like the despair with like the victories that they do still get they take time to show all the little victories that the kids reach in their journeys. And so it didn't feel like it wasn't. I like movies that are both show how systemic oppression works, but also not leave you feeling like, oh, I just want to die now. Like, they're so depressing. Like, I think it did that perfect balance of like not being so like paralyzingly depressing.
Right. It's happy, but it's also twinged with, it's bittersweet. It's bittersweet. Yeah.
And doesn't shy away from like the actual reality of what our lives are like, and doesn't like try to make it seem like things are easier or better than they are, which can definitely happen. I mean, like inspiration porn is kind of like that. It's just like, look, these people can do all this stuff, and like let's not pay any attention to the fact that they deal with so much oppression, and that it is like you know, they're part of an oppressed group that, like, still does not have rights in this country. Like, I think that, yeah, it doesn't shy away from that at all. So, yeah, go watch this movie. The one problem I have with it is stupid title. I don't like it, but we have had good. I realized we did like all the movies with colors in the name.
Well, there you go.
So I don't know. I guess maybe that's the one thing I'll say about the title is we seem to like color related movies. But actually, that's interesting because what are we doing next week, Melissa?
Oh yes. Speaking of movies with colors in the title, next week we are doing the 1965 classic A Patch of Blue.
Oh.
This is another...
Just a little bit of color.
Just tiny bit, a patch if you will. This is another one in of our Academy Award-winning films.
You've really been on an Academy Award kick, I feel like, almost.
Mean, I can't help it. I'm slowly trying to wean myself off of the Oscars and the Academy. And blah,
it's been
blah,
a
blah,
while
blah.
since that happened this year even.
Yeah, but we're gonna do it. A very controversial film if you were seeing it in the South in the 60s. This film tells a story about a man and a woman, a blind white woman and a sighted black man who find and fall in love with each other.
Tale as old as time.
A tale as old as time. Yes, indeed. So yeah, that's next week. That's A Patch of Blue. I rented it off of Apple, but you can rent it at the usual suspects, Apple, Amazon, and the like.
If you still have a video store in your town,
right?
you can rent it.
If you live here in Portland, just hop over to Movie Madness.
We didn't double check, but probably I would assume that they would have it.
If we were still watching these movies together, I think we'd utilize Movie Madness a whole lot more than what we do.
Because then if one of us rents it, then we have the copy.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's always a little bit challenging with accommodations.
Right. It's just been easier to watch stuff separately. But hey, who knows?
Maybe sometime. I'm moving next week. If the sound sounds better or worse, it'll be because we will be recording in a whole new location for the rest of
I can't
the
believe
podcast.
it. I have to look around and say goodbye, Sky's Room.
This is
amazing.
good. We have two blind people saying goodbye to a visual physical space.
I know, right?
and everyone else is listening to it in a podcast. So this is very good. This makes a lot of sense content-wise. But yeah, it may sound better or worse. It could, I mean, honestly, probably worse.
We
but
won't know.
Hopefully it won't be worse.
We won't know until we get there.
Yep, we'll find out. But anyway, this is the final end of an era for my current living situation, and next week we'll be moving on up.
There you go, to the east side. Well, to the southeast side.
It's literally it's the same neighborhood. Literally, I'm not moving to a different neighborhood even. But what can you do when you fall in love with someone who lives in the same neighborhood as you in Portland and whose family live in the same small area in LA? Like the same basically LA suburb, which is truly bizarre if you know LA. But yes, so love does what it does. I think that's the moral of next week's movie. So
there you go.
Come back to find out if that actually is what it is. Anyway. Good, we got some tangents in there. What were you blindsided by this week, Melissa?
Right. Well, like a lot of film folks or just people in America, I don't know. Y'all watch what you want to watch. I'm not. Point is, I've been watching Loki. This week I've caught up. I'm watching it actually with some friends through a virtual watch party, so we're all just kind of watching week to week. They haven't really been enjoying it as much as I have, honestly. At first I was kind of like, I don't know what this is. This is not what I expected. Is this what I wanted? And I think I'm very happy that this is what we've got.
Okay.
So basically the bare bones plot of the show is Loki, the character Loki from the first Avengers movie, steals the Tesseract, the Time Stone, and goes back in time to wreak havoc. And what I thought the show was going to be was basically a romp where like Loki is every week he's in a different time period and he's causing trouble. Like Doctor Who, exactly. But what we got is Doctor Who.
Okay.
But it's just not a Monster of the Week type episode. It's more like Matt Smith, Stephen Moffat Doctor Who rather than Tennant or Eccleston.
Okay.
So there's an overarching through line, and it's sci-fi, and it's weird, and the TVA is really cool the way that everything is designed, and Owen Wilson's in it, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow.
And it's so funny. I just naturally said, "Oh wow," and I'm like, "Why did I say it that way?"
Wow. He's really great, and all his character wants is a jet ski, and by God, if they don't get him a jet ski by the end of the show, I'm going to be very disappointed.
I feel like
Tom Hiddleston obviously is great as Loki. I could watch him read the phone book and be entertained. So, like I said, I don't want to say much because the plot is crazy, and I don't necessarily want to spoil everything. But it's on Disney Plus. If you have access to that, check it out.
Is it audio described?
It is audio described. Yes, I've been watching it with the audio descriptions, and they have helped out tremendously.
Awesome.
Yeah, but that's Loki on Disney Plus, and it's a lot of fun.
Nice. My family would love if I take your recommendation. I'll have to watch the show.
You know what?
At some point. I'm so
it's
behind
6
on
episodes.
all the Marvel stuff.
It's just 6 episodes. Honestly, you can do it in one
It
sitting.
seems pretty.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe I need to. I didn't even watch the final Avenger movies, multiple ones, so I'm behind. But
You don't necessarily need to have watched all of the Marvel stuff to have fun with this show. There are parts that probably won't resonate with you as much because you don't have all the backstory. But honestly, just check it out.
Okay.
It's fun.
Well, I have Disney Plus, so maybe I'll just like catch up on all the Marvel stuff eventually.
There you go.
Anyway, nice. That's good low-key recommendation.
Loki.
Yeah. So mine is, instead of being low-key, it's Bold, which is the TV show The Bold Type.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is a coincidence. I didn't know what you were gonna pick. Mine is so bold and yours is so low-key. But it is a show that's basically about it just finished its final season pretty recently, I think like in the last few weeks, but I've been watching it for a few years now, so it's been on for a while, but it follows 3 women who work at sort of like almost feels like like maybe Teen Vogue vibe, but it's like a little bit of bitch media kind of like mixed. I mean, Teen Vogue has gone very like social justice-y recently, so
nice,
like that kind of vibe. But it is about like the 3 of them starting as interns basically in different ways, and them kind of as the seasons progress, they're getting more involved in this magazine the magazine is a fictional magazine called Scarlet, but it's kind of like feminist
nice.
and fashion magazine.
Well, as long as it's better than Girl Crush.
No, definitely a different vibe of that than Girl Crush. No, it is. It's more kind of like we have this like kind of very maternal character who's the editor-in-chief, who's like kind of a advocate for the 3 of them, and like, kind of like helping, guiding them, and they make all these mistakes as like, they're 25-year-old or whatever, young, I think they start like 23 years old, like young girls in New York, and they like grow up as the show goes on. But I mean, it's fun. It's very like millennial kind of sort like intersectional feminism kind of stuff, but it's like, but it is, it's just an interesting show in that it doesn't feel like, it sometimes feels like it should be more hitting you over the head, given like the actual plot points. Sometimes it feels like it should be more preachy than it kind of comes off as, so I kind of like it for that. But it's just they do a bunch of stuff through these 3 characters we watch, like them really come into their own. I don't know. It has many seasons, so it's right now you can watch the whole thing on Hulu, so it's easy to access. But
oh, perfect. That was my question: is where I want to watch this. Where can I watch this?
Yeah, and there's like it's a good bingeable show that there's enough content, but we will have an ending because it just ended, so that is a complete show now, and it is called The Bold Type. And you can watch it on Hulu, maybe on other streaming platforms, but I know it's all on Hulu, so that's where I've always watched it. So I think it's probably the main one it's on at this point. I think we did an episode, right?
I think we did.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, come back next week for Patch of Blue. Our theme song is by Lucia Fasano. Our YouTube is Citizen White Cane Podcast. Our Twitter is White Cane Pod. Our Facebook and our Instagram are both Citizen White Cane. If you'd like to send us an email, you can send it to citizenwhitecanepod@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a voice message, there's a link in the show notes. What did you go to an IEP meeting, and what was your experience?
Yeah. Oh, that could be a loaded question. Oof.
Something fun, Melissa, go.
Oh my God, something fun. Would you ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? I don't know.
In the patch of blue moonlight.
the patch of blue moonlight.
Do you dream in color?
Do you dream in color?
Yeah.
Some people don't. Some people dream in black and white or Spanish.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Portugal and only spoke Spanish and tried to get blind accommodations? Was that a good experience? It's really specific, but any of those, you can leave us a voice message, link in the show notes. Come back next week for Patch of Blue. They'll also rate the podcast and tell friends about it, and tell friends about Do You Dream in Color, because we really like that movie as well. Yes. We're gonna go back to the Academy Awards. This podcast should get an award just for all the award show movies we watch. We'll see how it holds up. Come back next week. We'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Citizen